This is the grave of Dennis Morgan. His actual name was Stanley J. Morner. Let's start by who knows who Dennis Morgan is?
Heard the name.
Okay. It's fading away.
Nash? No?
He was in, he was really big in the 40s and 50s. At one point, he was the highest paid actor for MGM.
Wow.
Did some war movies, did some comedies. He lived in Ahwahnee. He was my next door neighbor, but he was a half a mile away. He had 90-acre ranch on Road 619. So he owned a portion of 619 off of Road 600. That tied into Harry Baker's ranch of the phone company. And together later on, they bought that portion back from the county and put gates on it. So now the gates are closed most of the time. But as a child, I knew he was an actor, but it's not like today where you can Google somebody and find their name or anything like that. So I hadn't seen any of his movies. So to me, he was my nice neighbor down the road. My younger brother used to clean their stalls for their horses. Lillian was in the Yosemite Western Artists, and they used to meet at the Gertrude School there. And my mother was involved in that, so Lillian, she would give Lillian a ride. But he did the best movie. If you don't know who Dennis Morgan is, on Turner Classics around Christmas, and sometimes they run it in July because Christmas in July. Christmas in Connecticut, that he did with Barbara Stanwyck, is a great introduction to Dennis Morgan. He did, Jack Carson was another actor and a comedian at the time. He did Two Guys from Missouri, Two Guys from Texas. Those were the answer movies to Bing Crosby, Bob Hope, and the road movies that they were doing. It didn't catch on as well as the road movies did, but they're entertaining and fun to watch. He did some war movies, but what I did finally I was able to, if a Dennis Morgan movie's on, and I have Dish Network, so I'm able to go up to the top of that thing and it says cast. And so you can click on cast, and not only can you record movies, but you can record a person. So if you like Clint Eastwood, you can go Clint Eastwood and it'll record any time Clint Eastwood movie comes on. I did it with Dennis Morgan. So now I've seen many, many, many of Dennis Morgan's films. And they've all been decent. He sings, he also, does a little soft shoe, and it depends on what he's doing. But he knew, well, when we went down there, he gave my parents a tour of his house, his ranch house down there, and he showed us, and this was when I was 12, and he showed us where there was a poker game going on at one point because they were stopping the stage there at one point, and something was going on at the Ahwahnee Tavern, and so a couple times they were stopping the stage there, and he showed us the bullet hole that was shot in the ceiling that was never, they never fixed. It was there still. But he was just a great guy. I remember in the 1980s, he had done movies with Jane Wyman, and I can't remember which movie he had done with them, but what they did was they got Jane Wyman and Dennis Morgan back together on the Love Boat. And I remember watching it. We only got 2 channels back then, and they were really snowy. But Entertainment Tonight had a big deal on it that they were getting back together again because of this movie. And so they were on the Love Boat, and everybody in Oakhurst and the surrounding areas were watching Dennis Morgan do be on the Love Boat. So that was the first time I ever saw him in action. He was pretty old back then. At a certain point, they got in a car accident, and Dennis really slowed down after that a little bit, damaged his eye. He was blind in one eye after that. But great guy. I broke down on my mini bike one time down by his place. He pulled up in his station wagon and said, "You want to, well, we couldn't get the bike in the back, but it was really nice that he stopped." So, but a great guy. Lillian was very nice, very welcoming at their home. I'm sure there are people here that knew. I'm sure Adele. I'm sure you knew them.
Oh yeah, their youngest son went to high school with me, Sarah High School.
There you go.
The bus
Yeah.
every day.
So every now and then we'll get somebody that calls here wanting information on Dennis Morgan, and they're a fan. And a fellow was writing a book some years back, and wanted all the information we had. And it's like, well, I can't really give you much other than what's, I'm not giving you the family's phone number, sorry. But so that's Dennis Morgan. But a few years back, we got another actress. And we don't necessarily have to walk down there, but it's that little red flag right here. and her name is Ann Baker. And when she passed away down south, and the funeral home called me to make arrangements. And they said, you got to Google her. She was an actress. So I did. She had her own TV show as a teenager, and it was called Meet Corliss Archer. And she was the main character. I'd never even heard of that one. But it was around probably pre-Fathers Knows Best and all those down there. So there's some episodes online. So I brought it up and I watched a couple episodes of it. She's legitimately had a career, and then she married her husband, who was in construction, and then she did that. She just walked away. So, but there was a time, I go researching both of them, Dennis Morgan and Ann Baker, and I found where their paths may have crossed, and they may have been on the same television show at one point. So, you know, just I can't.
What brought her here from LA?
Well, they had lived up here at some
okay.
point, and then went back down, and that happens a lot here.
Yeah.
So.